Hey there, YouTube. JT Serenity Farms prepping here with part 2 of vaccines motives. So, in my first video this morning, I laid out a worst case scenario of what the vaccinations may or may not be about, and my issues with the prioritization of the distribution system. Okay, that was my opinion, just as this video is strictly my opinion on what I think could be going on with the vaccines. No medical advice involved, just my opinion on why I think they were produced. That's what we had this morning. Now, the opposite side of the scenario right now. So, we know that the entire Great Reset pandemic is controlled by the central bankers, aka deep state, aka elitist Democrats. As central bankers, they want a one world economy. In order to achieve that goal, they need to implode. That's the opposite of explode for the tards. They need to implode every economic system in the world. That's how far their tentacles reach. Now, a lot of the countries that they control are fully on board with this plan. Not necessarily the people, but the leaders certainly are. We've seen that. That's your Macrons and your Merkels and your Trudeaus. Okay. The central bankers know Donald Trump is not. Everything this president has done since he took office in 2016 was designed to remove our country away from the central banking system and the Federal Reserve. That's why we're energy independent in just 4 years. We are food independent. Manufacturing was brought back. Okay? Now, the deep staters and the Democrats in this country, they're all part of the central bankers' plan. They see President Trump coming in and ruining everything they've been doing, beginning to expose who they are and how deep they are, and they needed a plan. In comes the virus and the mail-in voting. Okay. To date, that has not worked. The economy was suffering and still is in some aspects under the pandemic. But it didn't work like the central bank, the Chi-Coms, and the deep staters were hoping. People are awake. They realize that it's not what they've been led to believe that it is. So here's where the vaccine comes in. What if, and I actually hope that this is the way that it is, what if President Trump had these major big pharma companies produce a vaccine in record time that is safe, which is what he has appeared to do. I don't know how he knows for sure that all the vaccines are safe. Big Pharma has never been on board with countries managing their own money. It's always been about them making a buck regardless of what happens. So there's that. I'd like to think maybe there's some patriots on the inside of each one of these countries that know this vaccine is safe. So what is achieved by the president in just 10 months, despite all the fake news and Democrats saying it can't be done, can't be done, can't be done, getting a vaccine out there and now being distributed. The sheeple idiots who are scared to death now have something they can take that will make them unafraid. They will roll up their sleeves, they will get their vaccine, and in theory, let's get it on. Let's go back to what we were doing. Mostly making America great again. Well, the deep state cannot have that. Why do you think you hear all the so-called experts I mentioned in the first video saying, despite the vaccine, I still see restaurants and bars staying closed until 2022. I still see us needing to wear masks. I need 80 to 90% of the population to have been vaccinated before this is safe. They know there's not enough vaccinations to do that right now. They have to push the narrative that everything that you have been dictated to do since last March still needs to be done, even though there's a vaccine. They still need to pump the fear and the hysteria and the false narrative, even though there's a vaccine. They need businesses to stay closed. They need people afraid to go to work. They still want us isolated from each other. They still want all the negatives from this. The child abuse, the sexual abuse, the domestic abuse, the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, the suicides, the murders, the crime. They want that all to keep rising. Anything they can do to implode the economy. But it's not working. So, if you've been paying attention, Biden even just yesterday, the day before, mentioned dark winter again. Not coincidentally, NASA came out 2 days ago and is talking about a solar storm where there's a great chance the entire world will be in 6 or 7 days of darkness. Happening anywhere from, I forget, 16th or 17th for a week or so. NASA, if you go to their website, you can see it, and they have a list of things people should be preparing for. Light bulbs, candles, bottled water. It said it's not supposed to affect anything except our light and bring darkness. And 2 days ago, during his quasi speech, he played into it, calling for a dark winter. This is not the first time he's mentioned dark winter. Coincidence? I don't believe there are any anymore. So, the central banks are losing. The U.S. can break away from the central bank, the Federal Reserve, because notice the Federal Reserve did not raise interest rates like they claimed they were going to do. Once, President Trump went public and said, all these other countries aren't doing this, why are we doing this? They dropped them. Okay? That stopped the inflation and the implosion they were working on. Now, the Federal Reserve seems to be taking orders from the president instead of the other way around. So, the vaccine, if it wasn't safe, the fake news would be making sure the president got credit for it by stating that he had been in the lab in a suit coat and face diaper producing these vaccinations all by himself. We know the president was responsible for getting the vaccine done in 10 months. We also know, because we're clear-headed thinkers who have our own mind, that the president wasn't in a lab. The president would get contacted by someone somewhere throughout the process, and they would say, this is in the way. What can we do to get around it? He'd get it done. This can't be done. We need to do it this way. He'd get it done. So, yes, the president is responsible for getting this pushed through. They will give him no credit. We're used to it. Doesn't make it right. We're just used to it. Now, like I said, if something goes wrong, there's enough people out there that will intentionally make something go wrong with the vaccine just to blame it on President Trump. But at this point, I don't see that happening. Right now, central bankers are trying to figure out what they can do to implode this economy. The pandemic isn't working. Their hype, their hysteria, their fake news, it's not working. This vaccine is going to have the opposite effect. And we'll deal with all the other November 3rd stuff as we go. But think about next week. Go to the NASA website. Take a peek of that. Let me know what you think. Remember, hackers have got into the banking and other things right now. Paid hackers, if it's happening. Okay? They can get anywhere they want and try and implode this. Don't be fooled. Be prepared. Like, share, subscribe, comment, notification bell. But for now, JT, signing off.